Oh shit!
Oh dear, that was a close call. I'll show in a moment how close exactly. First an introduction to the rest of the video. Hey, I'm Heintje and I've made many videos about the trails around Verbier in Switzerland. I'll leave a link to a playlist at the end of the video in case you want to check those out. One thing I still want to address a bit more is the Bikepark in Verbier, with the focus on the Tyre's fire line. This is a race line for the IXS Cup. I thought I'm a pretty decent rider by now. Well, this line showed me I'm still a big noob. This line is already a challenge to get to the bottom of, not even trying to go as fast as possible. Of course, as always, I have to start with warming up. For this, we started with the blue line. This one is what you expect from an easy line, in the Alps. Lots of burns and a few table jumps. I have to say, I find the trail quite rough for a beginner trail, especially considering that most beginners don't have the best bikes. All the rocks can get pretty hard on the arms and legs. Unfortunately, I had only half a day to explore the park and the top lift of the park was also closed, so no deep dive into all the lines. One big disadvantage of the blue trail is that it isn't a top to bottom run. At some point you have to continue on the shuttle road or continue the yellow line, the race line. It has to be said, this is probably the easiest part of the race line, but still quite a step up from the blue line. Then after a bit you have an exit to the right onto a red line, not so steep but really rough. From there, there's no other option than to follow the road. First you encounter the entrance to the yellow line. Be careful there. This is by far the hardest part of the yellow line. A bit further there's an entrance to the red line. Steep but doable. Even quite fun if you ride it a couple of times and you get to know it. To end with one tiny section of the blue trail, a part I might as well could have left out. It doesn't add anything in my opinion. Next was a fun run of the red line. This one is completely different to the blue line. This one is narrow, technical. Think the flow line in a blank, but 2 or 3 times as long. Even though I haven't been in Verbier for a couple of years, I still knew it has a gap jump at the start, one I thought that would be out of my league.
Ja, is echt goed te doen.
While passing by, I realized my view of what's a big jump has changed in those years. Now I'm sure I can do this one. Something for a next run, a run that unfortunately wasn't in the cards this day. Now for the teaser from the intro and the thumbnail. I was happily cruising down the trail, when all of a sudden, when I came around the corner, a deer came running at me. I've seen deers and other animals running away from me, never straight at me. Something we both didn't expect. It happened so fast I couldn't even react. Thankfully the reflexes of the little fellow were a lot better.
Oh shit!
Recently I switched from the GoPro 11 to the new Insta360 X5, a 360-degree camera, which allows me to fully see and show what happened. That still all went very fast. Only when I show it frame by frame, you can see how fucking close it was. The camera only goes up to 30 frames per second, but that means that I was only 1/30th of a second off to hitting the poor thing. Luckily he or she could get away with just a slide out. Probably still painful, but I'm sure he'll recover. A little further down the trail I had another incident. This is where the camera really adds something to the footage I can show you. Even though I don't like crashing, if I do now, I can show even better what happened. By turning the camera down, I can show that I hit a tiny rock here and went over the bars. With the motto crashing is a skill, I realized immediately that this one wasn't savable, so I dove off my bike and starting a roll.
Volgens mij niet.
Now at the bottom, I didn't want to do the boring part of the blue line again, so we went to the yellow line to get back to the gondola. Another section that is doable, if you steer around the bigger features that is.
Dikke jump. Echt een dikke.
Only tricky bit is this steep roll into a corner. Now time to get back to the top and start working on that yellow race line, called Tyre's Fire. First issue, where does it start? Here you have a starting gate, but of course you'll first have to get to that starting gate. To get there, there's a jump line, not in the style of the rest of the line, so I think I should not include it in the line. Anyway, time to start scouting the line. I'm sure at some level you can bomb down a trail like this blind, but for me, and probably most of you, there's just way too much that can catch you off guard with very serious consequences. I have ridden this trail in the past. During one of my vacations with MTB Verbier, I spent the rest day doing runs of this line, and got to the point that I could get to the bottom, be it slow and while taking all the chicken lines. Basically the same as this run, only back then I wasn't riding a downhill bike, that was on my specialized status. 170mm of suspension. Looking back, it was good at absorbing big hits, not so good at repeating small hits, you know, like rock gardens. Talking about rock gardens, this trail has some serious ones. I noticed that I can look 3 or 4 rocks ahead to figure out a line, at least at scouting speed. Thing is, there are more rocks here, meaning I had to slow down even more to read the next part of the rock garden. I guess I should have stopped at those rock gardens and really pick a line for the whole section. That is one thing I still want to try out someday, do a proper track walk of a trail before riding it for the first time. I think by starting to ride slowly you'll find a line that kinda works and tend to stick with that line. Only when the speeds get higher and the line doesn't work anymore, I'll start looking for better lines. I wonder how a track walk impacts that. But that's something for another video. Hit the subscribe button if you're interested in that experiment. This time, with only half a day, I wasn't gonna waste valuable hours on walking down the trail. Even besides the point that I would like to do a walk outside of opening hours, for safety. The hardest part on all the trails around Verbier are the drainage ditches. Little compressions meant to direct the water off the trail. Great for maintaining the trails, quite annoying to ride. Same on this trail, however, in order to be able to clear them with speed, all of them are built in a way of a drop. This makes most of the drops tiny gaps, so small that you can't really fall into the gap. Only at my current speed, they'll result in cases. So my best option is to take them fully on the outside, although to do so I basically have to zigzag the trail. If you've seen some of my videos, I'm sure you know I have the skills to ride these tiny gap drops. Only of course, here they find a way to make them a lot trickier than they seem at first. Either they're on a steep section that a small drop will result in a lot of speed, usually just before a turn, or they are so close together that you already have to start the second one before you even land the first one properly. Still, during my subsequent runs, I started to drop more and more of them. The next section I want to highlight is here, an uphill rock garden. Here it's extra important to keep the flow, otherwise you lose all the speed.
Helemaal verkeerd lijn.
The next jump tricked me. You can ride around all the big features on this line, so I expected this one to be roadable, but I stopped just to be sure.
Oh nee, toch.
Now I've come to by far the hardest section of the whole line. Here it gets steep, and again a long rock garden. I found the right side doable. If you get to this point for the first time, I highly recommend to check this section out first. The rest of this section is just as hard, rough, steep and not much room to slow down. Again, a couple of sections I had a mindfuck and needed to reapproach.
Hallo, stak.
After scouting this line for the first time in a long time, I don't even understand how I've ridden it in the past. I mean, by now I have a better bike and I'm a way better rider. Even now, this trail puts me on my place. I thought that by now I knew how to ride a bicycle. Honestly, I found it a real challenge to get safely to the bottom, not even to mention the physical endurance needed. At this point I wasn't even doubting to do more runs. I mean, I got down safe, but with no flow and my arms and legs burning. But I know I need at least 3 runs to kinda learn a trail, so I decided to give it at least one more go. I even went for a third run after that. During these runs I upped the speed a bit on certain sections, also hitting a few more features. Besides the small incremental progression, there are a few areas I want to address. First being this puddle gap. I remember doing a tiny session last time I was in Verbier. Back then I also looked at it and rolled up to it a couple of times, eventually pushing it out. Not this time, now I committed. However, I did ride over the bridge before, that gave me a slightly better line into the jump, and well, of course, I overshot the gap. Here we have one of those longer rock gardens. Somehow I tend to enter this one on the right, only to realize the left is a way better line. Some features you remember straight away. I guess it has to do with how you approach this one. That sets me up for the right side, but eventually I figured it out. Next highlight is this drop. During my scouting run I rolled it by going to the left. During these 2 runs I forgot that the right isn't rollable, what led to 2 cases. After a couple of runs I even started to find a bit of flow in the hardest part of the line. Only one feature I think I can do left, the big drop almost at the end. I did a roll up and decided not to go for that one. Looks like it requires a bit of speed. I'm not sure I can get that speed out of the loose corner, not worth the risk this day. With that it's time to get back to the top for my 4th and final run. While I show the whole line once again, let me conclude the video. First the bike park as a whole. Honestly I find it hard to rate this park. It has a couple more lines than those I've shown in this video. Some of them weren't accessible yet. The lift needed to access those is only operational in the summer. Those lines add a bit more options and variety. For now, the 3 lines I've shown all have a very distinct audience. The blue line is fun to get a bit of a feeling for a bike park, but not rewarding enough to really push and master. The red line is a fun lift accessible enduro trail, only it will get repetitive quite fast. That leaves me with the yellow line. This line has it all, but is really hard to ride, even harder to enjoy. More on that later. Let me first zoom out a bit to the wider area. One thing Verbier shines on as a mountain bike destination are the tons of natural technical trails. Check out my other videos about Verbier to get an impression. If you want to go on mountain bike adventures, Verbier is the place to be. For racing down bike park trails, there are so many better places. Places that don't charge 65 euros for a day ticket. Back to Tyre's fire, the main subject of this video. During my 4th run, I really started to feel the line. I got to keep momentum through a lot of sections and got to clear some of the smaller features, restoring my faith in my riding capabilities. I've said this about a lot of trails. And for this one it's even more true. This one you must give a couple of runs before it gets fun. But man, there's so much potential here. Unfortunately, I only had half a day. I think that if I could spend 2 days, preferable working with someone else to work out more features, I could find so much more flow and fun. Where at the start of the day the line made me feel like a noob again, at the end it almost gave me the feeling of a professional. Sure, some of the bigger features are and probably always will be out of my league. That's all I have to say about the line, but I'm nowhere near the bottom yet, so let me talk a bit about the channel. What do you guys think of these kind of videos, where I work out the trail? Where I start by scouting and over the course of multiple runs get better and better at it. I feel I'm at a plateau in my riding skill. At the moment I think I'm as fast as I can be with my safe line choices. In order to progress further, I really need to start to look at lines. Often lines that require a minimum speed therefore take me quite a bit of time to build up to, but are also satisfying when I get to nail them. A process that I think is very interesting to make videos about. What do you guys think? Are you interested in that, or do you prefer just some cool riding footage while I ramble about whatever? Please let me know in the comments. While I'm at it, let me also ask you to subscribe. Seeing people subscribe to my channel is still a big confirmation that you actually like my videos. With that, I've run out of topics to talk about, so I'm gonna thank you for watching and say howdo. While writing the script, I don't know how much longer this run is, probably a couple of minutes, so please, feel free to keep watching. I promise, it's worth it. Anyway, I hope to see you back for my next video, and of course, howdo.
Ja, dat scheelt een hoop.